Page in the Seattle Mariners offense. Hello? Are you there? Anyone? Guess not. Colby, let's talk about whatever the hell that was. Hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen, subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, are in the description of the show wherever you're watching or listening to this. The Mariners get one hit off of the A's last night, and it didn't even leave the infield. We'll be going over these offensive struggles and discuss if it's time to call up Jared Kelenic. But first, Colby, there is a beauty in actually being in wild card position rather than chasing a wild card spot because, you know, despite the Mariners going 1-4 over their last 5, they've actually knocked like 5 or 6 numbers off of their magic number, including last night. Their magic number now falls to 10 because the Orioles lost to the Tigers again, and the White Sox lost to the Guardians in a wild extra innings game. It was 3-3 when they got to extras. The game ended up being 10-7 Guardians. It was pretty insane, but the Mariners now, 10 wins or losses by the Orioles or White Sox away from ending this playoff drought, but they're limping to the postseason. But again, I mean, this is just kind of the beauty of actually being in a spot rather than chasing it, right?
Yes, this is when we talked about the margin of error that the Mariners had. They're testing it. They're seeing how far they can go, but this is why it was important to build up the margin of error. And this is why, when we talk about strength of schedule, we kind of always had this little like asterisk next to it because the Mariners traditionally, or well, at least this year, they have played better against good teams than they have poor teams. I don't think that's about them playing down to the competition or anything like that. I just think it just happens to be that way, but it does go to show, as we get ready for the playoffs here, that the Mariners can beat anybody. They can be beaten by anybody. And that makes them an incredibly dangerous and also frustrating team, which is why, the confidence level of Mariner fans is kind of ebbs and flows with each game. And we see it even when we record. The Mariners play well, or, people listen to the show when they don't play well. Yeah, people maybe just, we're not going to listen today. There's no reason to. So, yeah, this Mariners team is incredibly frustrating right now. Yes, there are explanations for some of it, but there's no good explanation to getting one hit by the Oakland A's, really ever, but particularly this Oakland A's team. Offense is just atrocious right now, and it's one of those things that we keep on waiting for certain players to turn it around. We keep on waiting for, well, they can't be this bad with the bases loaded forever, right? And yet here we are 145 games into the year, and nope, they are. This is who they are. They didn't get the home run last night, so they lose. It's pretty much what the Mariners have become. Will somebody hit that big home run for them? No? Okay, they lose. I mean, it's not a good way to win games. It's not a way to win games that is conducive to, making deep playoff runs if that's your one trick. So this team won 14 in a row at one point this year. Wasn't really a lot of home run. I mean, there were home runs, but like they found a way to score runs and in different ways, and that's how they won those games. And right now it's, hey, did Carlos Santana or Julio hit a home run? No. Okay, I guess they lost. Mm-hmm. That's just not a good way to build your baseball team.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the game and a little later on in the show, but I saw a really interesting note today. Came from the baseball Reddit r/baseball. The Mariners, of all the AL wildcard contenders right now, The White Sox are not involved in that, by the way, so I don't actually know what their record is. But the Mariners' record against teams with a winning percentage below 500 is the worst of all the AL wildcard contenders. They're 43-33 against what you would consider to be bad teams, which doesn't sound too bad on paper, but you look at like a team like the Blue Jays, who are 44-21 against those same kinds of teams. The Mariners, meanwhile, have the best record against teams with a winning percentage above 500, 38-33. So like this team just quite literally makes no sense. And it's weird how, I mean, I don't believe in especially in baseball, it's really hard to play down to your opponent. But it does kind of feel like that's happening here. I mean, like statistically, you look at the record, you look at just how this team plays its games against bad teams compared to good teams, and the way that they're able to win those games, it's like night and day. It's apples and oranges. It's like a tale of two completely different teams. Is there a way to explain that, Colby? Is there an actual way to play down to your opponent? Like what's going on here? Why does this continue to happen for this particular Mariners team?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel like an energy thing, like they need the juice to play well or anything like that. It doesn't feel like their struggles get exasperated. It doesn't feel like they're worse with the bases loaded against bad teams than they are good teams. It just, for whatever reason, it seems to be that, the Mariners, is it maybe just because we cut them some slack against good teams? Because again, they're only 5 games over 500 against the good teams, and they're 10 games over against the bad teams. So maybe it's just us lower expectations when we go into these big series against these really good teams. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's kind of hard to explain. I don't have any numbers to back it up, but at least on the surface, it doesn't seem like the problems with this team get exposed even more when they play, bad teams. It seems to work that way, and kind of the opposite, really. You kind of look at the disasters that happened in against the Braves. They haven't really happened in this little 5-game stretch, and yet they've lost 4 or 5. So it's just kind of one of those things. I don't know what it is exactly. Again, there are some explanations for some of what's happening over the last 5 games, but they border on excuses, because those are all problems that honestly we did see coming and we should have seen coming. The team that's been remarkably healthy all year getting banged up towards the end here, and relying on guys who have traditionally been banged up. And just, all these little things that are, we've kind of talked about, we've hinted at, they're all kind of coming into play at the same time right now. And that's not good. Again, thankfully they have the buffer. And thankfully, they have a couple weeks here to get this thing figured out. But yeah, it's not the way you want to go into the playoffs playing this poorly. And we'll see, they could still win the next 2. And we're not even talking about, getting 1 hit in Oakland, but sure feels like we found rock bottom for this Mariners offense, and hopefully they feel the same way, because at the end of the day, they just have to hit. Like, I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear about, how good the other guy's stuff was. I don't care anymore. Just hit. Find a way to score 3 or 4 runs a night. I don't care how you do it. Just do it.
And you have to do it against a team like the A's, and we'll be hopping into that game in just a moment. But first, it's time for everyone's favorite segment on the Locked On Mariners podcast. It's time to tell the fine folks here about BlueChew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. Of course, the Mariners don't know anything about that, but maybe you do. That's where BlueChew comes in. BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. You know what I'm talking about. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, You'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. And, of course, with BlueChew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman, because when your package has arrived, your package has arrived. So, if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, and I know the Mariners need some of that, chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try BlueChew free when you use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. Promo code LOCKEDON to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring Locked On Mariners. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. And again, the Mariners could really use some BlueChew because it looks like they're up there swinging pool noodles. Especially yesterday. My word. They get one hit. I finally made him crack. I finally made him crack. So they get one hit last night, and it doesn't even leave the infield. And it was Carlos Santana, of all people, by the way, who gets an infield single, which honestly makes it even funnier. They end up getting the one run because of a walk. And that's it from this offense. And on top of that, Luis Castillo doesn't have his best night, just absolutely blows up in, I believe, the fifth inning. Yeah, the fifth inning. Wasn't even able to finish that inning. It was just a mind-blowingly frustrating game yesterday. And honestly, I don't even know where to begin with it because, it's all bad, right? Like, obviously the offense needs to score more, but also your rotational ace can't do that against the A's either, right? Like, so it was just bad all over. Like, it's bad. No matter where you look at this performance for the Mariners, it all sucked. So let's just start with Castillo. I mean, why did the doors get blown off there all of a sudden? Because he was kind of cruising. I mean, like, he gave up a couple hits. I think he had like a walk or so, but whatever. He had a 1-0 lead. He got through the first 4 innings at like 53 pitches, I think. And then he got 2 outs. And then Tony Kemp hits the 3-run home run, and he can't find the strike zone from that point forward. And he can't get anyone out and can't even finish the inning. What went wrong?
Yeah, probably all started with that 2-out walk to Nick Allen, the guy who's hitting like 210. You can't walk that guy, especially Oakland right now has like 2 hitters in their lineup that are actually producing that have actually produced for the last 3 weeks a month. One of them is Tony Kemp, and you can't get that guy a shot to beat you when he's one of only 2 or 3 guys in that lineup that can beat you. So you can't walk the 9-hole hitter. You can't. It's a cardinal sin to walk somebody with 2 outs, but even more so when it's, the 9 guy, like the guy who can't hit. You got to make that guy beat you by swinging the bat. So that's probably where it starts. And then he just lost the changeup just right down the middle of the plate. Kemp put a good swing on it. And then, after that, you kind of say, well, okay, one bad pitch. But, then he follows it up. He couldn't get out of the 5th. And it's unfortunate because you're right. He was cruising, and we've seen this now from Castillo last couple times out. He'll cruise, something will go wrong, and then he just can't really find a way to stop the bleeding. It's similar to what we've seen from Yusei Kikuchi in the past, where just looks great, dominant, all right, and then something doesn't go on schedule. Something comes, it goes off the rails slightly, and he just can't adjust. And for Castillo, it's mostly because of his command and control. And typically what that means is there's something mechanical that he loses. Maybe the front shoulder's flying open. But like for a guy like Castillo, he's a veteran enough. He should, recognize that. And this is where the catchers and the coaches can help him. I have to assume there's something mechanically going on here. Maybe it's just, his landing is a little bit off. Maybe it's his shoulders flying open early. But his changeup flattened out on that pitch as well. So typically speaking, there's some kind of disconnect there between your upper body and your lower body when that stuff starts to happen. So hopefully somebody much better at that, like, I don't know, Pete Woodworth, sees that and knows, can make the fix pretty easy. So yeah, it's just a matter about Castillo being able to self-correct when he's when he's feeling out of sync. And if he can't do that, then it's really important that Kirk Casale and Cal Raleigh, and really Kirk Casale, who's worked with Castillo quite a bit, to notice those things and get them ironed out. And so far, Casale catching Luis Castillo has been a disaster. So
yeah, so we got a note here from one of our listeners who added us on Twitter today, Bob Potter, who says Luis Castillo's ERA with Casale is 5.06, and with Raleigh it's 1.37. So obviously something is happening there where they're just not in sync or what have you, because the performances, I mean, it's striking the difference between him with Casale and him with Raleigh.
Right, and Raleigh caught the starts against the good teams. You look at Casale's couple starts here. Oakland, I think both 2 against Oakland and
2 against Oakland, one
and
against
then 1 against Chicago.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that's a thing, but it does maybe point to the significance of Cal Raleigh and just how good he is. And Raleigh's just not available right now. We'll see if he's in the lineup today.
That's when Service said he thought he would be back. So we'll see if he's back today.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch was supposed to be back in the lineup a day later after they pulled him, and it took a week. And well, we can bash Mitch Haniger later. So it's one of those things where I just think it's Castillo. Just something goes off schedule, something doesn't quite right. He loses his release point. It's something small, I think. I don't think it's anything major. I don't think it's anything to be super concerned about. I think there's something small that when he loses it, he just can't seem to find it right now. And so I think that's incumbent on him and the coaching staff really to kind of, review the video, pinpoint what it is, and then find a way that he can correct it, midstream before he has to, before significant damage is done, basically.
All right, so let's switch over to this offense. I don't we don't need to harp on it any further. Last night was awful. Is there something that they can do personnel wise to maybe try and send a jolt into this offense? Something, just trying to do something different here. The big one here, of course, we're seeing it on Twitter. A lot of pounding of the table for Jared Kelenic. Jared Kelenick's obviously on an 11-game hit streak down in Tacoma right now. He has like 5 or 6 multi-hit games sprinkled in there. He's hitting home runs. He's hitting for a lot of power right now as well on top of that. So it's quality contact too. It's not just little dink shots here every night that's getting him on base. So clearly there's something that is leading to success from there, but he was having success in AAA before he got called up the last time, and then he got called up, and it was still the same exact Jared Kelenic that we've seen at the major league level for most of his major league career. But I do look back at last September, and in the heat of a playoff race, Jared Kelenic was arguably the Mariners' best hitter in September. Again, you're kind of at a point now where you're desperate, but are you desperate enough to take that shot on Kelenic again to give him, what would it be now, his 4th shot in 2022 alone at the major league level?
They got to do something, because the offense it's impotent right now. There's just nothing, nobody's rising to the occasion. So it's just one of those things where, you got to try something, and maybe it's mixing up the batting order. Maybe it's, there's not a lot you can do, because you can't acquire better players. That needed to be done in late July and August. And we've talked about that quite a bit. Despite many people telling us Mitch Haniger is the answer to this offensive woes. How's that working out for you? So yes, they got to try something. And if it's Kelenic, fine, I guess. There's also, they could try Luis Torrens a little bit here. They could try Kyle Lewis. Neither of those guys exactly smashing the ball in AAA though. So we'll see. Kelenic wasn't in the lineup last night for whatever that's worth. Probably nothing, just a day off. But I do think, there's some merit to it, especially when you look. Taylor Trammell just kind of looks lost at the plate right now. which is unfortunate, but also, hasn't really gotten a lot of opportunity, but maybe that's because he's not hitting right now. So it's kind of a chicken or egg thing there. But you kind of look at what you're getting right now from Lamb and Trammell, and even Haniger. Like, at least Jared Kelenic can catch a fly ball. Like, at least there's that, and he might run into a home run every once in a while. So I understand the want for it. I don't think that's going to be the magic pill that automatically fixes the offense. So I just, they're kind of in a tough spot. Again, they could call up, maybe a veteran like Jonathan VR is a possibility, just to try and get some. I guess on the good news, it sounds like, is that Gino is going to be back after 10 days. Like, he's going to serve his IL stint, and then he will be back DH only, which not ideal. Interestingly, he was wearing a first base glove yesterday, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it says it's going to be a while before he can throw, which I
mean,
assume
that
means,
creates the same issues though. Like if he plays first
yeah,
base or DH, like it's not
it's
about
still Todd
like
France.
yeah, like it's not about the fact that he is DHing necessarily. That's the problem. It's the fact that someone's got to play third base. That isn't Gino Suarez.
Yeah, and that's a huge downgrade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you just look at right now, Toro and Lamb and Trammell, like, they're nothing. They're nothing right now. They're not helping you. So you can send down one of those guys and call up Kelnick and take a shot on it, I guess. I mean, again, the good news is you're not facing elite starting pitching for the rest of the year. And you don't need to use Kelnick every single day. But to have that thump off the bench, to have a guy who can go in late defensively, that's not Sam Haggerty, and play a pretty good corner spot for you. Even to have a guy who's like in center field would be nice, so you don't have to use Dylan Moore if Julio needs a day because of his back. So I do think there's some merit to calling up Kelnick. I just don't see the Mariners doing it. It's tough, and we also don't know how Kelnick and the organization are feeling about each other right now.
Sure.
So yeah, I just, you're kind of in a tough spot here because of what you didn't do, a few months ago, and now you're kind of, reaping the rewards, I guess, if we want to call it that, of that
The
decision.
consequences.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things where, hey, does it suck that Cal Raleigh, Julio, Suarez all got hurt at roughly the same time? Sure, but you also relied on Mitch Haniger to stay healthy. After, spending 4 months of saying, like, well, we can't count on Kyle Lewis for anything. Whatever we get from him is a bonus. You went into the deadline counting on Kyle Lewis. Like, you said you weren't going to do that all season, and then you did it.
Yeah.
Consequences.
We see Mitch Haniger and Kyle Lewis as our deadline acquisitions. No. And look, we're not going to beat a dead horse here, but like it's very,
it was stupid.
When you see these offensive struggles, it's very easy to kind of point to that as a crucial moment where, look, they weren't going to fix the offense, but can't tell me that Tyler Naquin wouldn't help right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, the frustrating thing is that we heard, and it was pretty much backed up just by evidence, that Jerry and his crew were not interested in rentals at all. Zero interest in rentals. They were never interested in Brandon Drury because of it. That's stupid. Like, let's just call it what it is. I think Jerry does a great job, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he's built. But that's a swing and a miss by him to not be interested in a guy. Like, we are well beyond the time where, club control should be greatly considered. We're past that, right? It's no longer, you're no longer acquiring talent for the long run. You're acquiring talent for right now. So that means you have to give up control years to get a rental. You do it if it impacts your team enough. You don't go crazy with it. You're right. We're not advocating giving up Emerson Hancock for Brandon Drury, although I've seen worse ideas. But, we're talking about, like, give up a guy who's 4 years away from the big leagues for a guy who helps you right now. That has to be on the table. And so, just their unwillingness to do that, it turned out to be, I don't want to say detrimental, but it turned out to not be the right decision. And we're kind of living through that consequence right now, and it's unfortunate, but that is the reality.
Yeah. We still don't know if this is ultimately going to lead to their demise, because season's not over here. We don't know how the playoffs are going to play out. We don't know how guys are going to or if guys are going to be able to get back on the horse, further remove that they are from their injuries. And ultimately now the Mariners are in a spot where they have to count on that happening. Whether you think that's realistic or not to set your expectations that guys are going to figure it out, that's what the Mariners have to hold out hope for. They have to get down on their hands and knees and beg and pray that Mitch Haniger is going to figure it out. Ty France is going to figure it out. Julio Rodriguez is going to be okay, with his back issue.
Ty France taking a step back again last night. So it's great. It's great. No.
And like I mentioned, the last night was going to be the toughest pitching matchup that they had, and facing Sears, because Sears has been pretty good this year, but he's not that good. He's not, give up one run on a walk good. And they had opportunities, right? Sears was, back against the ropes in the first inning, and they just couldn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, the second inning he threw like 45 pitches.
Or was it the second inning? Yeah, it was the second inning.
You got one run out of it, and it was on a walk. No, you need a hit. And that's why, the Mariners walk a lot. Like, that's great. But you know what walks get you? One base. That's all they're ever going to get you. You know what a single can get you with the bases loaded? 2 runs. You know what a walk gets you? 1. Like, yeah, you take the walk if they give you the walk. But, at some point, walking is just not the answer, especially when your other master plan is home run. Yeah, Jerry's literally said, oh, our offense right now is kind of, we draw a walk and we hope the next guy hits a home run.
Yeah.
That's what dumb teams do. You can do it, but if you don't get that home run, you lose. You need a counterattack. You need a plan B. And unfortunately, because Adam Frazier and JP Crawford haven't had good years, you kind of lost that, this guy's not going to hit home runs, but he's going to hit singles. Not as often as you wanted, and now the rest of the offense has to pick up the slack, and it's a vicious circle, and guys are picking each other up. I mean, the number of times runner on third base, 1 out, and you just have to hit a ground ball to the shortstop, and this team will pop up or they'll strike out. It's mind-boggling, and yes, you want multiple runs in an inning, and that's ultimately how you're going to win games and how you're going to blow teams out, but this offense is so bad that when you get that opportunity to get the one, you have to get the one, because they're not going to get a ton of opportunities.
Well, it's really disheartening, especially when you see one of the other teams that you're in the mix with here that you're now trailing by 2.5 games in the standings, just scored 18 runs against the Phillies in a game which Kyle Gibson, a pretty decent pitcher, started. It's like, I mean, that's scary, right? Because what that offense is capable of, and it's starting to kind of shape up here where you might have to face them. And now, the one thing that we haven't talked about here on the show, and we won't get too deep into it, but we should mention it because it got announced right after we stopped recording yesterday. It looks like the vaccine requirement to enter Canada is going to be lifted on September 30th. So if you do go to Toronto, you should have everyone. Robbie Ray should be able to start in that series, so that feels a little less daunting now, but it's still like not ideal because of the atmosphere that's going to take place in Toronto, and that offense can do some damage. If Luis Castillo or Robbie Ray pitches the way that they have in their last couple starts, I mean, it's over for you, because you're not going to be able to outscore the Blue Jays, right? I mean, there have been rare occasions where the Mariners offense has picked up the slack and been able to, go toe to toe with some of the best, teams in the world, like the Braves. That's a couple Sundays ago, which they won 8-7. But that's a rarity for this offense right now. You're going to need to hold the Blue Jays or the Rays or the Astros or the Yankees or the Guardians, whatever team that you end up playing in the postseason. You're going to have to win those games by holding them to 2-3 runs and then winning 3-2, 4-3, what have you. Like, that's how the Mariners are going to, that's the blueprint for how this particular Mariners team is going to win games in the postseason. But again, they got to score those runs, and even scoring 3 runs, scoring 4 runs feels like a massive task. It feels like a massive hill for the Mariners to climb up. And what's crazy too is like, they were actually scoring runs fairly efficiently before this road trip began. They were averaging almost 5 runs a game over their since the end of August. But now that's just completely fallen apart, and it's starting to snowball now. Cause like, even when they were averaging, even in that stretch where they were averaging like almost 5 runs a game, there were a couple games though where they scored like 1 run or they got shut out, I think. But the next day, they come back and score like 5 or 6, right? And so we're not even seeing that. I mean, yesterday or the day before yesterday, they exploded for 9, but then right back to just getting shut down by a bad team, by a bad pitching staff. You need to rack up consecutive wins here where you're, because you got to get on a roll as an offense. You got to get in a groove. You got to be able to rattle off like 5-6 runs for the next like 4 games, right? Like, do that, especially, and you can do that against these pitching staffs. Like, that's not even for this offense, even with the struggles that it has, even with the injuries and the lack of talent at the bottom of the lineup, you can score 4, 5, 6 runs against the A's, against the Royals. So that's my challenge for the Mariners over the next 3 games. Score 4, score 5, score 6 over the each of these next games. Have to, because you got to get on a roll.
Right, you just got to start winning again. Every day we get further and further away from the idea that the Mariners can host the wild card round. You're 2.5 back of Toronto now. You do have the tiebreaker on them, which is good. And Toronto does have a tough schedule, but Toronto is the only wild card team right now that's actually playing well. Seattle and Tampa are both struggling. Baltimore's in the tank. So Toronto is just kind of starting to run away with it. And again, if you're Seattle, you'd rather be the 6 than the 5, but you want to be the 4. Like, that's the goal. So again, the Mariners, their magic number is 10. So on that count, everything is actually, pretty good. If the Orioles or Mariners win 1 game in their next 5, if either of those happens, then I guess at least the Mariners will clinch their playoff spot at home, which is something we were worried about. So if you're looking for a silver lining, that's the best I can offer you, because last night's game was atrocious, and it needs to be buried and forgotten, and they have to play better. Just period. We can sit here and can they do this? Can they do that? Just play better. Play better. Period. Stop with the excuses. Oh, this guy was pretty good. Oh, this guy. I don't care. You should beat the Oakland A's. You should beat the Kansas City Royals.
Burn the film. Burn the tape. Move on. On to the next day. There's one thing that I'm rooting for, though, talking about clinching wise, that was brought to my attention last night. Apparently on September 28th, it's Bark at the Park night at T-Mobile Park. Brandon Gustafson of 710 Seattle Sports pointed this out to me last night. Yeah, I want the Mariners to clinch in a full stadium, full of dogs, full of good boys, just losing their minds after the Mariners.
I will now go down with this ship. Bark in the Park is the worst promotion the Mariners have ever done.
You're trying. It's a remarkable how much you're trying to get us canceled.
I love dogs. I don't love dogs at the ballpark. There, I said it. Unless they're good boys, but
they're all good boys.
Not all. There's some menaces out there, but like, yeah, Brandon's dog is very cute. So it's just so adorable. But I'm not a big fan of it. Although to be fair, I've never gone. Like, I would never bring my dog to Bark in the Park because no. But
that does sound like, to me, that does sound like a nightmare as a dog owner. Like, to actually bring your dog to the park with all the sounds, all the sights, all the smells, like
all the other dogs.
all the other dogs. Like, yeah.
But no, maybe I just need to experience one. Like, buy a ticket up there, but don't bring a dog.
But could you imagine they clinch and then all the dogs are just barking? Here, bark.
No.
Bark. Come on.
I'll say this: if the Mariners do clinch on that night, I will not think about the dogs for a single second. They'll never enter my mind, so I don't care. But
he said the thing. He said the thing, guys. He said I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. So there you go. So I'm not a fan of Bark in the Park night.
Something told me that you wouldn't be.
Yeah, I just whatever. Like I said, I don't go. I've never got. Those are usually on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday though, and I obviously I can't. I don't live close enough to go to those games on a regular basis. So, but yeah, I mean, we got to wrap it up. But yeah, not a fan of Bark in the Park night, but if the Mariners clinch on Bark in the Park night, I will be a fan of it. So there you go. That's how I will sign off on that. For the love of God, hit
Please hit.
the dang ball.
We're gonna
not
be
that
back.
hard.
We're gonna be back after tomorrow's game, so we'll have 2 games to talk about. I would like a lot of runs to talk about, and I'm not talking about from the green and yellow side. Talking about the navy and teal side. Northwest green. God, I said it again. Northwest green. I'm sorry.
And you think I'm trying to get myself canceled.
I know. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Mariners. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.